Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to World United Press. I'm your host, Elijah Anthony Dominguez. Today we are going to be talking about something very precious in this world, more precious than gold or anything that you could actually acquire. No, I'm not talking about love, but I am talking about the First Amendment. I want to talk about the First Amendment and the coronavirus. So there was a case that I was reading through called the New York Times versus Sullivan, and that was in 1969. That lawsuit was eventually dropped, but the owner of the libel suit who filed it, L.B. Sullivan, won $500,000 for libel in this case because the New York Times has obviously slandered him. Now, we hear often fake news, deep fakes. What are these? These are things that have been issued by government to discredit individuals. Now, I know that is a very touchy subject. He's a conspiracist. Well, the CIA actually had used that term as well. I will also post those links down so you can actually see those. They actually created this to discredit people who are telling the truth. Well, you're a conspiracy theorist. Or you're fascinated with the money, or you're only in it for the fame. These are types of things that they will use to discredit an individual, to make them look crazy or insane. Now, with the COVID-19 thing, there's a huge issue with that, and we'll get to that in a second. But I want to give an example of fake news. Donald Trump had a shooting in Florida. It was the school shooting where they had the children going and speaking out. And they were going and speaking on television and all that. That's all well and good, but we have the right to the Second Amendment. Now, here's where it got really funky, is when Trump started talking about arming people, arming civilians. Now, I was watching this with my friend. I was sitting at the hospital at the time, and we were watching this, and I said, this isn't going to last very long. As soon as he said that, they're going to media blackout. About a week later, there was a media blackout. No more of that occurred. Why? Because they did not want people to be armed. They don't want us armed. So they media blacked out it, so it was no more. Okay, now that is an example of fake news. That's a real example of fake news, because they were propagating an issue. Now that falls under the New York Times versus L.B. Sullivan. That's the one of the best examples I can give. And so my question is, with the deep fakes, well, how can you deep fake something from the 1970s? I have seen things on tapes from the 70s. Well, again, this is just a way to discredit an individual and silence them. Another example is we changed gay from happy to a homosexual. You can't say midget. You're a midget. You're not a little person. Children are little people, my baby mama is a little person. She's like 4'9". She's a little person. Midgets are midgets. George Carlin said it the best. People are not proud of who they are, and it's fucking a shame. And so I want to get to COVID, because this is a very important subject and topic, and it affects our whole society. I was listening to radio, television on this. I'm always the skeptical type. I'm the type that, I don't know, because I haven't seen anything that can actually prove it. The radios were even saying this. We have no test to prove that COVID exists. There's no test yet that can actually show this. Well, I look back into the polio crisis. Now, millions of people had to die in order for them to get a vaccination. Now, why is the pharmaceutical companies doing this? To make profit. Now, the real problem is that nobody can say anything against it. If anybody speaks out, it's silenced. And so it's like, well, if my position is I can't speak out against something because my position is your position, meaning the CDCs, the health departments, and all these agencies, positions are so weak that they have to use groups like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat to censor anybody who is putting media that contradicts the topic of COVID. That's not free speech. That is communism. That is oppression. That is absolute destruction of our society. And these politicians are in the pockets of these pharmaceutical companies. I'm going to call it like it is. They're in the pockets of these pharmaceutical companies, and their silence is obedience. Their knowledge and silence is obedience, and that is oppression. That is real oppression, and that is something that should be fought. And this is more important, this is more important and precious than anything. That's like people going into the street and marching and being told, well, you can only have a free speech zone. Splitting us in zones. Like, really, you're going to censor my speech by putting me into a specific zone? And if I don't do that, you're going to call the cops on me for free speech because it interferes with business? That's too fucking bad. That's the form of communism. That's a form of oppression. That's a form of fascism. Our country is becoming very bad. The politicians are just talking heads. That's all they are. And people need to wake up. Wake up, people. So this has been my report. And this is a topic that should be continued to be discussed. Thank you for watching. Share, subscribe, like, comment. Hopefully YouTube does not censor me because I'm going to put it under COVID-19. And they flag everything under COVID-19. But I do not care because obviously I'll file the proper tax forms. And we'll have some real fun with them. This is internal. We are being enslaved. Slavery is not just an individual being locked up or working for labor. The slaves had rights. The slaves had a house. They had little amount of food, but they still had food. Slavery is also an individual who has control over another individual who's completely trying to control them or have control over them. I had to get personally in my life, I had to get away from a relationship because he was over-controlling. That is a form of slavery, and that should not be tolerated. That's tyranny. Tyranny must die. All tyranny must die. And the only way to do this is to actually speak out and try to make laws and changes in laws that protect our rights. I had a warrantless arrest recently. I asked for the warrant. They still told me, well, a judge allows me to circumvent the Fourth Amendment right. We are living in an oppressive country. People come here from other countries for freedom when there is no freedom here. And they're just trying to get away from tyranny in their country only to face more tyranny and get spit in the face of, basically. So, next time you think about hating somebody or you're angry at somebody, and you hate them because of the way they dress or they look or the way they act or they speaking or mannerisms, remember that person is your brother. Even the police officers in the uniforms are your brothers. They have aunts, they have uncles, nephews, nieces, children, they have family members too that they live in. We're all human and we have become dehumanized, and that's wrong. And that has to change. We have to have open discussion and open topics with each other. If we can't freely express how we feel and people aren't okay with the way that we feel, then that's not right. And we should walk away rather than use violence. Violence will only gain more violence towards another individual, and it will spread. It's like a wildfire. And thank you again for watching this. Share, subscribe, like, comment. This has been World United Press. Thank you for watching and continue to watch.